Welcome to REI Partners, where education, networking, and collaboration create wealth through real estate. We are a nationwide community of like-minded investors that is growing every day. Here, we educate, inspire, and empower you with the true benefits of real estate investment. Each month, we bring you new and practical content to help fuel your investing journey. At our meetups, we connect you with experienced investors, agents, and other industry professionals. We provide real-time coaching and mentorship to elevate your investment game. Our mission? To help you harness the power of the market through education and partnerships to build true wealth through real estate. Whether you're tuning in from the heart of the city or the comfort of your home, you are part of the REI Partners family. Get ready to transform your goals into reality. We are REI Partners, where your real estate journey begins. Let's get to work.
Hey everybody, REI Partners. We're on the site of a house in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. We're doing a home inspection here. Mike Sup from ROI Home Inspections is doing this for us. It is an active listing, so we're going to be a little bit careful of the things that we speak about here, just out of privacy to the owner. But I'm just going to introduce you to everybody here. We're going to hold intros to the end. We got about 20 people in the audience on site, and we got about another 20 on the call.
I'm Mike Sup from ROI Home Inspections, and I'm also a real estate investor myself. I own a few rental properties. We're not going to conduct inspection here. I'm just going to basically run through like what kind of red flags to look for and the process that I do when I walk the property. So like starting here, basically, I always like to start on the outside of the house. You get to just look for the envelope of the house, roofing, and any other red flags potential. So basically, we start with this house here. We have 3-tab asphalt shingles here. And architectural are more the newer, longer-lasting shingles that are more likely used now. And you see the moss on this roof. And as we go to the front too, there's some lifted shingles, and around the chimney as well. There's lifted shingles there. That's kind of indicative of a roof near the end of its life. You know, not to say it's leaking now, but when we go inside, we'll look for we see outside to confirm what we see inside if there are problems. And another thing I look for is venting for plumbing. See if there's a more modern system with vented plumbing. Some older houses, there's no roof plumbing vents. A lot of S-traps, which cause gurgling, slower draining, and stuff like that. Where we have that here present. Gutters for water runoff too. You know, and these go underground, which are kind of hard to confirm the integrity of the pipes underground. But you always want your gutters to be at least 4 to 6 feet away from the foundation to make sure you're not causing foundation issues, moisture against the house, and stuff like that. And then with this chimney too, just you can see from here, there's roofing tar all around the flashing of the chimney. That's kind of showing from me from right now, and we'll see when we go inside. But there's obviously been issues. That's why they've addressed it, and that's kind of stuff. Kind of some of the stuff we look for. Deck on grade, kind of lacks ventilation. You're going to have rotting. It's not ideal situation for on grade system. And also, as we walk here too, you see somebody's been grilling a little too close to the house. Some melted vinyl siding. And then another thing that I really look for is oil tank. So right now you see it goes into the house, and there's going to be oil tanks in the basement. And one major red flag I look for when I'm inspecting and also just to purchase a property is if you see oil fill and oil vent just coming out of the ground, that could be signs of a in-ground oil tank system. And with those in time, if there's leaking, that could cause a serious environmental issue of just fuel oil from the house leaking into the soil. And that could really become a significant issue. There's been cases where there's water streams, say in the backyard, and you have a filled oil tank leaking, where you cause, oil going into water streams, and that could become a five to six figure remedy there. So that's one thing I really look for with buried oil tanks. I know in the state of New Jersey, they're required to sweep houses for them because you can't just leave them. In Pennsylvania, they could just fill them with foam and leave them there, but then you're still running the risk of you don't know what's happening with soil around you or your neighboring properties as well, and you're liable for all of that. So that's one thing I really look for when walking the house in regard to oil tank systems. And we'll just start walking around the house, looking at other things as well. Comes around. So another component of the system that we'll start to see on the outside of the house is electrical. So people either have overhead or this underground. This house in particular has overhead electrical service. So you want to look for a drip loop from when the city then meets where you connect to the home. That prevents moisture coming down through the service entry cable, down to the panel, or getting into your electrical system. And you want to look for the integrity of the sheathing of your service entry cable coming from the gooseneck down to the meter base. This one's newer and it's in pretty good shape, but there's a really good example of right here. It's really old sheathing that's torn up. When we walk inside, you can see it too. That would be something that I would point out being, it's broken a little bit. It's weather. That would be something having to replace down the line. And then this house also has a gas meter. So make sure there's no leaks or major corrosion. And it's in good shape too, which this one seems to be. And like I said, this house has all underground gutters. So it's really hard to tell the integrity of it underground, but if it would just spill out, sometimes people leave them just right next to the foundation, which you want to avoid. Like I said, 4 to 6 feet. That's easy to do it yourself as well. The things we put on the outside of the house, just really further bump down on moisture with the foundation. You want to make sure the grading out the home, graded possibly away from the house, not towards it. And some of these flower beds here, it's kind of flat or graded towards the house a little bit. And that's something that you want to avoid, and that could cause water issues down in the basement and eventually foundation issues as well if things are heavily graded negatively towards the house. And just something to point out here. Air intake and vent here. It just shows that there's a more highly efficient heating system in the house. The older systems have to go to chimneys with metal venting because of they're not as efficient. Also with PVC, they're able to go outside the house. So when you're just walking the outside, you could anticipate that you have a newer, more efficient system on the inside just by seeing that alone. And then right here, so when I'm walking the outside, so between looking for gutters being away from the house, you want to look for other signs of foundational issues as well. This house is a cinder block foundation, which it isn't the greatest of foundations, concrete, or even old field stone. They last a long time if they're well maintained. This crack, really, we'll look for other signs of concerns. Corner pop is this is the weakest part of the foundation on the corner of a house. If you see concrete foundations cracked at the corner, really isn't the biggest point of concern. You want to fill it to avoid any moisture getting in there and it further cracking or causing more moisture issues. But there is a little bit of displacement here, which comes with it being cracked on the outside. We'd go on the inside, see if there's any cracking inside through the whole block, or if there's any. And me seeing that on the inside, we'll be looking for jagged doorways or horizontal cracking. That's a real point of concern. If that same size crack was horizontal across the foundation, then that would be a real red flag right off the bat. But typically, vertical and small little gaps like that aren't the biggest deal. But you just have to confirm with other things that you see inside the house is it a big deal or not.
Why is the horizontal crack?
Because vertical is more just settlement and just from just stressing over time, where horizontal is more foundational movement. And then if you have a little displacement between it's vertically separated, then that's another large sign of foundation movement as well. And like I said, that could be caused from water or, you know, other factors as well. More water management and being on top of the foundation. Like this roof, this gutter obviously is in poor condition here, not fastening correctly to the top. That could be addressed. And as I mentioned earlier, that you look at the roof from the angle here, and obviously when you go to walk a showing, you can't always see the roof if it's a 3-story house or flat roof, which makes it hard to see those. But in this instant, you can see a lot of lifted shingles here. Like I said, it's some curling. It really shows that this is towards the end of his life of what you could expect out of that roof. You're not going to get another 10 years out of this, maybe a year or so, or we might have some leaks right now from what we look at on the inside of the house. But that's definitely a red flag there for sure. Then you come to the front door. This is a little bit older of a home. There's definitely some wood rotting going on. Newer homes and newer doors, they have composite, door frames and stuff. This is not the end of the world, scrape paint or just repair, but definitely rotting is noted. You can see it visibly, and on the support post as well, to this front awning. Same deal going on, kind of. Let's keep on making the way around. But at this corner too, there's another little visible crack as well. So with cracks in multiple locations, we'll definitely be paying a closer eye on the inside of the house. And that little bit of the horizontal, that's along a seam. That's not a big deal. But now we're seeing cracks in multiple locations. We'll be really keeping an eye for horizontal cracking or any movement inside as well. And this is a good example of a gutter being 4 to 6 feet away from the house. That's what you want to see. And on the other corner as well, that's another crack noted there as well. And right here, this is a radon mitigation system. So in Pennsylvania, actually, we are 1/4 chance more likely to have dangerous levels of radon in a house in any other state in the country. So radon, especially if you're living in the house, definitely want to have your house tested for radon at least once when you move in, and really like every 5 years or so, especially if you don't have a system. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer outside of smoking, and it's no way to detect it besides testing. It's odorless, and there's no real symptoms besides, the end of it, basically. And this has a little damage to the siding here. And basically, when I walk the side of the house, you want to look. I do one general walk around, and then it would be a good idea just to walk around again, just looking from top down. I look for just the fascia, soffit, check the integrity of the siding, windows as well. So in this house in particular, and like I said, you look for things on the outside to see if there's issues on the inside. There's gable vents present, and you want to ventilate your roof. And there should be gable vents, soffit vents, and ridge vents. The ridge vents are on the top ridge of the roof to let air out. Gable vents are for cross flow, and you should also have soffit vents as well. This house lacks soffit vents. With the age, it's not uncommon, but it's not present, which is not a great thing, which could lead to less time of a life expectancy of a roof due to it not being ventilated properly and overheating in the summer. And outside of that, basically start working our way inside. We have a good grasp of what we've seen out here. The flashing by the chimney. We're going to anticipate possibly seeing moisture around wherever the chimney is on the second floor of the house. And then the foundation, we're looking for horizontal cracking or any other signs of major settlement in the home. And that's basically it. Does anybody have any questions for the outside or what they want to look for? Go ahead.
If you found an oil tank underground, would you get is there a specialist that would evaluate that?
Environmental company, they could pressure test them to see if they're still intact, and you have it drained of all the oil if there is still remaining oil in there too. But that's definitely a good idea to have someone check it out before closing for sure if there is a in-ground system present.
when you were pointing out the line of the roof and we were looking for like raised shingles, at what point do waves in the roof concern you? I imagine on older homes, there's always going to be waves between like rafters, but at what point does that become a concern?
If it's pretty significant, it would be a point of concern because that could be from salt spots, from the leak roofing, and then the sheathing, the plywood on top of the roof being kind of warped and stuff like that. And like you said, it's age dependent. If it's a relatively newer roof and they didn't replace the sheet underneath, that was super wave, that would be signs of, improper job done, and it could be signs of failure nearby. But that's definitely a telltale that there is issues going on with the roof itself. So typically a roofer, they would replace that sheathing when they put new shingles on. So if it's like that, you're probably getting towards the end too of the roof as well. Yep.
A couple things I noticed in the walk around: the gutters are full of leaves.
Yep.
Bad news. Trees overhanging the roof. Yep. Bad news for the potential homeowner.
Yep.
And ground windows right at ground level is not a good thing.
Yep. Get moisture in at the ground level windows, especially. And they can point out with the tree. Basically, branches you don't want touching a roof. That could be an easy way for termites to just their point of entry, going from the tree to the house. And also with trees and stuff like that, you really want a tree to be a minimum 6 feet away from the foundation. So then you could have roots coming in and damaging the foundation there as well. And then while we're on the topic of just being outside, like other environmental things, like if you're buying a property with a septic system, that's something you would definitely want to be checked out. So I think of it like this on an investor point. You want to look for 5-figure issues. Septic system, $20,000 to $40,000 for replacement. If you have a failed system, a leaking in-ground oil tank, that's a 5-figure issue. Roofing, 5-figure issue. If you have a failed foundation that you're seeing from the outside, causes from the outside, that could be another 5-figure issue as well. And that's really my point of view that should be hammered down for investors specifically. There's other things. Every house has a line owner issues, mine included, and you're always going to have that. It's just the major things we want to look for, especially just on a showing. And any other questions for outside?
You just brought up a good point. The 5-figure issues could be a deal breaker for the average purchaser, but a 5-figure issue to an investor is an opportunity. So if you see a home that's not in perfect condition, foundation problems, roof problems, 90% of buyers are going to disappear because it's scary. That's where the investors come in. You got to compensate it financially, but if you could fix a foundation problem when no one else wants to get it and get the house for 50 cents on the dollar, that's what investors do. So you have to look at things for what they could be, taking into account for what they are right now. Yep. But everything has a monetary value, including a bulldozer. So that might be the fix to your problem, and start fresh. So everything Mike's saying is 100% on, but think like an investor. That's why we're all here. How could you make these things not problems?
That's what you'll see them to bring them up as a point of leverage.
Exactly.
So
leverage is huge. Any question?
Yeah, all good. I think we'll go inside. We'll hit the basement first, and then we'll work our way up through the house.
Let's see real quick. Hey guys on the call, does anybody have any questions before we go inside here for Mike?
Looks like a city here.
Yeah, this is. Yeah. All right. Can you guys hear us on the call here?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Sorry, Rich, go ahead.
No, I can hear you.
All right. It's really hard to hear you, so I'm just going to keep going inside here.
Okay.
stuff poured up. You see how some house coming from the.
All right, well, we're filtering inside, guys. We got about 20 people on site here, which is awesome. Another 12, 13 on the call. So thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to do this. We're trying to do a meetup at least every month. So if you find value in this, what we're doing today, please make sure you invite your friends to follow our page, social media, get on the website and check it out. It's really cool stuff. It's all free. We're just trying to spread awareness. And it starts with just getting out and being active. So we're going to go inside here and we're going to continue the interior inspection. Hi, John.
We're all good. First thing inside the house is right in the front door to the basement. Basement is where all the big problems are going to be inside the house. So everybody's down here. This is a Cape Cod style house, 2 floors. We are down here. Hey, everybody. Look at this. Cool.
Down in the basement. So further on the radon system. The radon monitor. This is just a little tab to see if the vacuum outside is functioning. So if it's down like that, that means there's no air sucking out. This is just to go to show that there's negative pressure below the slab. So basically, when you come to the basement, you're going to look for moisture intrusion, and then most of the major components of the basement of the house are in the basement as well: heating, plumbing, air conditioning, potentially water heater, all that. So in this basement, there's some cracks in the floor, but this is just a floating slab. That's not a point of concern at all. There's no structural value of that in a house. These posts are made of wood. They really should be metal posts. So that's something. It's an older home, but normal at the time. But that's not the greatest of things we want to see. And then also, just in a space like this, there's not many other mechanical systems or anything. You just want to look at the joists and around the rim joists as well, the exterior. That's where you see a lot of possible termite infestations or issues like that. And so I personally go around, and you can take a screwdriver and you're going around, just probe it around. You see anything chewed up. Sometimes I've hit termite tubes where I'm suspected of it, and my probe goes right through the joist. That's when you know you have a real problem and a real infestation. And basically, you want to look for on the ground any watermarks. I know, like right here, there's some signs of moisture down here so far in this room along the bottom of the drywall. You can see the outlets. Make sure basements, kitchens, bathrooms, and everything on the exterior should be GFCI protected. There are GFCI outlets down here.
Mike, what's the purpose of the GFCI? The people
if there's any water getting into the outlet, it'll trip off for you automatically to prevent excess shock and whatnot. And just because some outlets like that don't have the reset tab, they're usually connected on the same circuit, which is okay. We'll go in the other room. And also, coming down the staircase here, if you can do this handrail, good. It's a little loose, but also should have 2 guardrails here as well for children running and falling. That could be an issue for. So now that we're in this room, there is let's pile in. There's some exposed foundation wall here, which is good. Don't really see anything that cracking we saw outside. So most likely that's a good sign so far that was just corner pop and not major movement. But one thing we're seeing here, especially over here, there is a lot of moisture intrusion from the block wall. Like I said, there was some negative grading around the landscape beds around the house. And also, we don't know the integrity of the underground gutters as well. If it's a broken line where the gutters come in and you have water just seeping against the foundation wall, the hydraulic buildup there, it could be negative to a foundation. So definitely looking at moisture intrusion, that's definitely that could lead to foundation failure over time. And then you also have things like right here, definitely some signs of mold or growth at least from the moisture. And when you come to a house and you see you get one of these here, they just sucking moisture nonstop. Clearly, they probably had water problems before, but these are some of the concerns that we're looking for and we're seeing here. So you got motion of the foundation, a little bit cracking. Definitely not a great thing to see.
From your experience, Mike, at least from ours as well, most water issues in basements can be solved simply by gutter and water redirection.
Yep.
Is that something you see?
Grading, redirection, but it could be potential to the point you might need waterproofing depending on the water table of the house, the landscape of if you're on a hill, on a backyard, all depends, but that is most of the time just water redirection and grading is the biggest factors in foundations for sure.
Gutters are cheap.
Yeah, very cheap and very crucial as well. Failing foundation could get very costly for sure. So, and then in this, so when you're in the basement, you want to look for basically the plumbing materials used. So in this house, there's definitely some cast iron coming in the ground, some galvanized waste lines. It's tied into PVC there. But when you see cast iron used, especially in the ground, cast iron has an expected life of 50 years or so, and it was stopped being used about 50 years ago. So anytime you're seeing cast iron underground for the sewer laterals, you're definitely getting towards the end of that as well. And it's always a good thing for your homeowner's insurance policy. You could cover sewer lateral as well, and that's a very cheap thing to put on too, and a very expensive fix if that pops up as well. And then in this house, I'm not really seeing much PEX. I think it's mostly copper around, and it looks kind of dated in age. This is where the water comes into the house here. And a sign of older plumbing. So basically on the waistline and the water supply side of the house here, we're showing some aging on those two systems, which, that's the complete plumbing system of the house, which, that could be an expensive repair down the line too. Or you have corrosion here, all kinds of, that could cause ongoing issues as well. And then over here, we have the electrical panel. Everything's pretty much labeled. There's two major, you want to look for Federal Pacific panels. Those are not good. They've been cause a lot of house fires. Federal Pacific and Zinsco. Those are two you want to look for of just being no good. Westinghouse, it's not bad. And then when you're looking at electrical panels, you get a good idea of the age and what kind of electrical system you're looking at. So right here, newer houses are all Romex lines like this. We have old armored sheathing or leather sheathing here too. And so a lot of these could be ungrounded lines. So that's something that we'll look for when we go throughout the house for 2-prong outlets and anything like that. See if there's any grounding for those that could shock. You could have surges and damage electrical, like computers, TVs, and stuff like that, or additional shock hazard as well. And from the panel outside at the meter, I didn't see a ground rod, and there's no ground wire leaving the panel here. So this whole house system appears not to be grounded as well, which at this time was not required, but it's definitely a good thing for now because it directs the path of electricity is somewhere for it to go. So they just hammer a ground rod in the ground and a ground line from the panel to that rod outdoors.
Possibly had knob and tube years ago.
Possibly. You look, and then that's another good thing to look for, like you mentioned. When you're in an older house like this, you want to look through the joists to see if there are any knobs or active knob and tube in the house. So typically, in an older home that's had it, I see a lot that the first floor has been upgraded to, there's all new 3-prong outlets, but it's hard for them for the second floor, a lot of 2 prongs on the second floor or third floors of houses because that wire runs through the walls and people tend not to tear the walls apart just to get to it. And they replace the ones that are easy for them to do. But the third floor and second floor are more likely to have 2-prong outlets and still have knob and tube actively in the walls of the house. And they could just connect it to it in a different location and let the rest remain. So, and then while we're down here, with the heating system, whether it's furnace or boiler, also we see that this is heated by gas. You always want to make sure there's a drip leg here and then a shut-off valve. And this house appears that the oil tanks are no longer being commissioned. They're still here, but they're not being used. And gas being used for everything. And really, when you're just going to walk through, you will maybe look for the data tag to see the age of the system, and then also if it's been serviced, the service tags to see if it's been actively serviced or not. And it's look for general corrosion around the heating system as well to see where it's at in its life, basically. If there's no service tag, there could be signs of delayed maintenance and it just not being taken care of. And it's based off the age as well, you see how much time is left that you use the heating system for. And then with that, the venting to the heating system. So that the vent that we saw, the higher efficiency, that was for the water heater. It's a tankless water heater on the wall there. So this system is not highly efficient because it still has the metal feed to the chimney. And this is something you don't want to see. There's an opening in the chimney here. So these gases that are toxic leaving the boiler are going into the chimney with the opening in here. This could cause, increased carbon monoxide in the basement. And it's definitely something we don't want to see and you want to have closed up for sure, especially if you're living in the house or having tenants in here.
Someone just asked, what's the service interval for the typical boiler?
Should be annually. And with natural gas or electric, they're a little bit, natural gas is a lot cleaner, especially if it is an old oil system. That's something you really want to be on top of because oil is more crude. And, that's something that needs to be cleaned. The chambers need to be cleaned out and be serviced more often for sure.
If you have, I'm not sure if you guys can hear me on the call. If you guys have any Section 8 or county sponsored tenants, in order to renew their lease, they're going to do an inspection. And in order to do the inspection, they're going to come through and they're going to want to see a service tag of that boiler. And if you don't have it, you will not get rent from the county or whoever's providing that. So please, if you have a unit or a building with boilers, whether it be 1 or 4, it has to be serviced every year. It's to prevent maintenance issues for you, but it's a safety issue for your tenants. And we all have to be good landlords first before we're good investors. So please just take care of your stuff. It'll be good in the long term. You do not want to have a tenant call you at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning in the middle of February that their boiler stopped working. Yeah, because you have to fix it. So every year.
How about forced air units or oil-based units?
Same thing. Service every year. Forced air and things like that, right, Mike? Yeah. I mean, as needed, but you check fluid levels and service every year.
Yeah. And going on the thing with the cities and like Allentown, Bethlehem Easton, they don't allow oil tanks like this to remain in the house. When they do their COs, they'll make you pull the tanks out of here for potential oil leaks. And even the same environmental concerns we have, for in-grade systems. Say if there was, these tanks were half full and they failed and you spill oil out, the same concern, maybe not of bordering properties, but oil seeping into the ground, it could have the same issue inside the house. And in that case, that is another 5-figure issue where you'd have to have a company chop out the floor. They dig down until they have a third party test the soil that is clean, and then they either repin footers and then re-backfill and then put a new slab down, which is definitely something you want to avoid as an investor or homeowner for sure. And then with these tanks too, you can see that they're pretty worn. So like cast iron and other iron, they rust from the inside out. So when you're seeing signs of rusting on the outside of things like this, you can tell that they are worn and they're getting towards the end for sure. Especially if you see any on the bottom, that's something that you would want to be concerned of. Absolutely.
And then the cost of removal of these?
Removal might not be the most. There's companies that do it. And they just get it, they have to hump them out of here, which is not the easiest of things. Or they have to cut them, but
yeah, I was going to say, trying to get up the staircase.
Yeah, definitely a lot cheaper just removing it than having it spill out. That's for sure.
And when the tanks are not used anymore and they have to be removed, you need a permit to remove them. And most time it is hazmat because there's oil, there's sludge. So you have to have it done in an approved manner. And we've talked about this a bunch, Hector. It's a lot to get this out. Some townships don't care. Cities, they care big time.
They want
it done right. It could be a few $1,000s just to get this thing out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can't all fit back here, but we take a chance one by one. Basically in this back room here, oh my God, yeah, a lot of cobwebs. But this is a perfect example of cast iron waistline that's failing. It's extremely rusted from the exterior of the waistline, and you kind of see that its time is gone. And there's been some PVC added in certain spots, but definitely towards the end of its life of the waistline of this house. And then you have to question the integrity of the lateral going to the city as well at this point.
And you have a special tool you can use to scope that, right? You have a camera.
Sewer camera for sewer lateral inspections, for sure. That's something that, for investment property, that's something that would be wise to do, or even just for your own home as well.
Some municipalities require a sewer lateral inspection upon sale, and it's the seller's responsibility. So if you're buying a place somewhere like in
Macungie, Fountain Hill, Upper Macungie, Lower Macungie, they all, and Emmaus, they all require them currently. And it's becoming a more popular thing for municipalities because they have failing sewage systems, and they're trying to pass the buck off to homeowners, make sure they're repaired before any transaction. You can't even get through title without doing a sewer lateral inspection in those areas.
Because the owner is responsible for the sewer line from the house up to and including the junction in the street.
The connection.
And then the utility is responsible from that point, the pipe in the street.
Correct.
So if there's a break just inside the pipe under the sidewalk, that's not even in your house, you as the owner are responsible for that.
Yeah.
And all the excavation and everything that's...
Yeah. And with the homeowner's policy, you could add sewer lines to them, but that doesn't cover the excavation, which is probably the most expensive part of the repair. If it's the integrity is okay, but there's a tree root, this company like Roto-Rooter, they could jet them. They have all kinds of things, and they can line them as well, which avoids these major costs. But it all depends on a case-by-case basis of if it's a 70-year-old cast iron thing that's completely fallen apart, or something that just needs a little repair. So, is there any questions for in the basement, or?
Could I just ask a follow-up to, we mentioned about knob and tube wiring. When you are thinking about an investment property, can I ask, is knob and tube as scary as I've read? Like, is that a 5-figure problem in your estimation?
Yeah.
I guess, how much of a concern is that in your estimation?
A concern. It is expensive repair because not many electricians are going to tie into knob and tube. So it's kind of a removal and replacement. And that's how I mentioned like second and third floors of houses, how I see a lot that a 2-prong outlet's still up there, or even if they switch to 3-prong and it still shows up as no ground, it is more than likely knob and tube, because then you have to open up walls or just try to pull wire up through the chases of the walls, exterior walls that have insulation that could pose a problem and get costly as well. And it's a major fire hazard. It's a major shock hazard, non-grounded, and it is a major concern for sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the whole thing with knob and tube is back in the day, there wasn't the idea was there's not much of an overload. Like it's not being used as much. To where nowadays there's so much electronics that you're plugging all these different things in, it's an overload to the knob and tube. So that's what's essentially causing a lot of
At the time of invention, knob and tube was actually it was a great system, and it was very efficient at that time. Like CJ's saying, it's just obsolete now, and with how loaded the house, like a typical house now, new construction is a 200 amp system. You come into a lot of older houses, 60 amp panels. So it just goes to show how much more electronics we're using, obviously, which is with technology. Yeah, and all the devices we plug into and everything like that.
We're losing signal because we're in the basement. Can we get upstairs?
Doesn't the seller have to attest that there's no knob and tube in it?
Well, they could disclose if they visually see anything, but like if it's like I said, if it's in the chase of walls and it's not visible to them, it's a proven basis, kind of. If you don't know for sure, right? Disclose it yourself.
So we learned they're not always honest.
No. They don't know.
They don't know.
All right, guys, we're going upstairs. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath Cape Cod. Nice kitchen, dining room, but Mike's going to rip apart the 2nd and 3rd floors here. So bear with us.
Yeah, Mike, I'm also
I like just every room I walk into,
commentary.
same as I do outside, just pop down. And as someone walking a house, a flashlight is the major tool you can use. So like, I like to just run my light across the top. Obviously, you can see some seams in the craftsmanship here, where it's the settlement. But you want to look for, if you're on the upper level of house, any water staining, any damage, anything like that. And in the kitchen, you just want to run water. You see if the hot water is working, and just look at the drains below. Well, this door does not open here, unfortunately. But you want to see if the traps are leaking when you're running water. You want to maybe just turn the ovens on, make sure all the appliances are working just briefly. Obviously, if you're doing a walkthrough, you can't be running dishwasher or doing certain things. Always check before you turn the oven on that there is not stuff inside the oven too, like the Tupperware, or people use as storage. I've sadly encountered that for sure. And to see if the ventilation works, lighting, GFCIs are present at the kitchen, which it is here. A little quick cycle never hurts on the dishwasher. And then I always walk through his countertops. I always pull them up. This guy's a little loose. And then I like to open all the cabinetry as well. And you really want cabinetry, you just want to see if it's worn, if the drawers work, if they're wobbly. And also fasteners. This looks like this might be just drywall screws used to fasten the cabinet, or you should be using cabinetry screws with washer heads to prevent them pulling off the wall. That's a big thing. Outlet tester here.
That's kind of.
Yep. And this is something easy, cheap tool to use yourself. So that this shows that this is GFCI protected, and that reset to that one over there. See that for me. And then this one in particular is not an issue. This is just regular tile, but these are 9x9 tiles. So if you come across vinyl flooring, which are usually 1 foot by 1 foot, but they could be, if you see them 9x9, the same size, it's a 99.9% chance it's asbestos flooring as well. And that's one thing you want to look for. Like I said, I didn't know on that downstairs, but in these older homes too, insulation on these heating systems, if you see white insulation, that's more indicative that could be potentially asbestos wrap as well. And that's something another 5-figure issue for remedying that. Some people just cover it with plastic to encapsulate it, because when it's not friable and it's not airborne, it's not a threat to you. But when it does become airborne, that is a problem to your health, basically. And for kitchen, like I said, cabinetry, sure stove works, countertops secured, water running, electrical. That's basically for the kitchen. Any questions so far?
Do all the outlets in the kitchen have to be GFI, or just
6 feet, 6 feet from water? So you could have island cabinets that are not, and yeah, that is fine.
And the asbestos flooring and insulation, it's scary stuff because you hear of all this asbestos. Everybody watching Martin Tower just disappeared from the air one day because of all the asbestos in the building. At the time, this was like knob and tube. It was standard. It's what they made everything with. It's not that it's typically bad. It's just there's better alternatives to it now. Yeah. If it's not stable or it's not broken and chipping, it's not a hazard. Same thing, there's asbestos siding on the side of a lot of old homes. Yep. It's just what they used 70, 80 years ago to make stuff.
Yeah.
So just use your integrity, and when you're doing an inspection, note what's a hazard and what's not.
And asbestos siding takes paint very well. It is paintable. Asbestos flooring, your best bet is always just vinyl plank, just cover it up. Again, it's encapsulated, then it's not a threat. And then you just want to be more mindful of the insulation in the basement. If you have kids running around and if it's low, they could grab it. That's something you'd be concerned of. Or you could just encapsulate it and wrap it as well to prevent those issues. So,
wasn't it some type of code that it was a fixed island that had to have an outlet?
Yeah, I believe all fixed islands have that outlet for sure. And yeah, we'll keep on working our way through.
The radiator.
Radiator. There it is. Basically, the same thing. We come check the ceiling, check walls for damage, and then when I go through the house, I always check every window. See if they function fully, and they lock as well. Obviously, when you have older wooden windows like that, they're prone to failing. You want to look for, vinyl, replace windows, run the outlet tester in the outlets, make sure everything's grounded or wired correctly. A little bit of damage that could have been from a smoke detector at one point in time. And it's just going to look for flooring. There's a little staining here, but nothing major in this room in particular. You will look for heat in all the rooms, especially bedrooms and bathrooms. Those are important. And a little bit of cracking across the ceiling here. So far in the basement, we didn't see that could be just settlement from over time. And in the basement, we didn't see much of concern downstairs. Let's work our way into the bedrooms.
That's not your accesses.
That's not great.
Okay.
So these bedroom windows they're single pane wooden windows. So that's definitely something that's not modern, not as efficient, and they could still function, but it's definitely you're probably going to be on the hook for replacing sooner than later for sure. And then the same concept of every room we walk into. See some roof damage up here, so we don't know. There might be a bathroom right there. We see if it's water damage from. We'll basically see from when we're up top. That could be like a tub trap there. It could have leaked in the past, but we'll try to investigate that when we go upstairs. Basically, that's a point of concern there for sure. I believe when I checked out this room previously, there is a little bit of horizontal cracking in the bedroom here, in this closet. That's definitely a little concerning, considering the fact that we saw some cracking outside. So that. Which is the cracking that's present here. Could be with the age of the home. There could be other issues as well.
Plaster or gravel?
Most likely plaster. That's really hard to determine from just visually because between paint and skim coating over top. But with feel, it's most likely plaster, which as a Hector could attest, it's a nightmare to work with for sure. For patching and all that. Yeah. So we're seeing more cracking in the bedrooms here by the window. That's something that is a little concerning, considering everything else we've been finding. Another crack across the roof here, and some more cracking over here as well. Definitely signs of settlement and a little bit of movement in the house. We didn't see the foundation stuff outside. That wouldn't be the biggest point of concern because the corners are the weakest spots around windows and around the foundation. But with everything combined, with the moisture intrusion we're seeing, that's something that's definitely a little bit of a red flag so far. And, like I said, just the bedroom, just looking through, operating windows. This is a newer vinyl window. Just checking outlets and then just checking, flooring, walls, make sure doors work. Basically, the concept when you're hitting bedrooms are pretty cut and dry. It's more the mechanicals and kitchens that you want to look at. Yeah, the one cracked on the corner over here too. So
new construction homes. How many problems do you find with brand new homes?
Probably around 15 is an average of a new construction home.
15 issues in a brand new home.
Yeah, in a brand new home. A home this age. Looking around 75-ish issues, and I've had the terrors of 150 around, but those are long days for sure. But a standard inspection report that when you get back is say the house is 50 to 70 years old, seeing 75 defects is not an uncommon thing. You're just looking for the major issues in that fact. As I said, every house has their problems. New construction houses. I did one yesterday. It was 15 defects. It's pretty normal. And it was a well-built home. It's just little minor things that are overlooked. That happens throughout the home building process, multi-year process. So,
do you list things other than defects? Like the hardwood floor needs sanding?
Yeah, I'll note this is moderate wear. That it might have to be refinished. That's how I would notate this. So defects of things broken or just like damage or wear, I note in the report for sure. Any questions on the first floor of the house before we head upstairs? All good? Okay. And also in this house, it's older hardware in the doors. They could all work, but then that's something that they're going to start breaking up. And they're replacing and repairing, paying with their obviously.
I see you. Hi, Daniel. Hi.
It's a quick one. Basically, the chimney issues we saw outside, this is the chimney of the house. We're seeing right away, there's definitely moisture intrusion going on over here. And this is a good example from when you're seeing something outside to follow up, to confirm your concerns inside the house. This is a good example of that. There's clearly something going on. The flashing around the chimney is not good. And that could be caused from other roofing issues as well, not just around the chimney, but this is a good example of what we saw outside being confirmed inside the house. And then same standard thing, just flooring, ceilings, a little bit more cracking here, which is not great. And then like these attic hatches, you're going to be able to pop your head and look for insulation. Obviously, you're not carrying a ladder when you're walking a house, but just seeing what you can, where you can, or, a little hatch like that, I would open that up and just stick your cell phone up there, look around as well. It's always a good idea, look for insulation, stuff like that. And same thing. Anybody else see anything in here that they'll be concerned with? Or any other questions? Obviously, a little paint peeling there. Same thing with wooden windows, aged. Just cosmetics, really.
What's that? It's a red roll.
Yeah. The solar system. Yeah. And basically up here we have another bedroom, kind of the same deal. I don't know if you would come in. You guys were good for that. What? There's that. So when I come in the bathrooms, first thing I do is I run water everywhere, look for drainage issues, any clogs or anything like that. And then just function the stoppers. This one's broken, stop's always there. Then I look for the trap when I'm running water, looking for any leaks. And then I'm also, as I mentioned outside, for when there's venting in the roof, like these are P traps. When there's no venting, then there's S traps going straight down. Those can cause siphoning, slow drains, gurgling, stuff of that sort. You always want to see the toilet base, if it's tight or not. If it's loose, that could cause leaking around the toilet as well. So I'm going to flush that while you're running water at multiple fixtures. Seeing if you have good water flow at all the fixtures as well. Make sure you're getting hot water at every fixture, as well as drainage. And make sure there's at least a window or a vent. Both is ideal. And GFCI protection, like I mentioned, bathrooms, kitchens, basements, and outside. And yeah, that's really it. And a heat source as well. This one has electric baseboard here, thermostat there, to fire all bedrooms and bathrooms. Anybody else have any other questions?
I have a question about vents. I always had a house that after I bought it, I realized the vent wasn't venting anywhere, just into the wall. Is there any way for us to know just by looking if the vent is actually going outside?
You have to go in your attic or see basically if you, that is a concern. If it's just venting into the attic, you could be causing moisture issues and mold in your attic space. You want to just be able to go physically. You have to crawl into the attic to confirm it's like either being led to a soffit or to the siding to a vent grill there as well. But that's something that is entailed in crawling into an attic space, not just on a walkthrough. But that is definitely a thing you want to confirm because you could lead to moisture issues, not just going in your attic and creating mold and all kinds of other stuff as well.
Great.
Yep. All right. I think that's really it in the house.
All right, we'll do some in the kitchen. Ask some questions and
yeah. But feel free to take some tape measures here for sure. Always no problem.
all right, we're going to do a little summary here, and then we'll open up to everybody for questions. I'll try and get it to work on the video, but
Good to go. Yeah. So I'm just going to run through the services I offer, not just selling myself, but just what is available for when you're buying a house and what to be concerned of. So obviously, a home inspection, whether it's an investment or it's a regular house, gives you the general breakdown of everything in the home. And then radon testing, like we went over, dangers of radon, especially in Pennsylvania, is a major concern. That should be done accordingly. It's about $150 for a radon test with the home inspection. Then sewer lateral inspections, as are required in some municipalities. Even if they're not, you buy, as Matt explained, from the house to the city, depending on the length of the run, if it's a long yard going to the city and excavating included, that's like a $300 charge for sewer laterals, but that could be another 5-figure issue as we discussed. It could be tree roots, it could just be collapse from the age, there could be back pitching, settlement, it could be plenty of issues there as well. Mold testing, I offer indoor air quality testing, which kind of shows that the mold spore count in the house. That's it. There's something, a lot of people call me for that if they are dealing with, if you walk down in the basement, it's super musky, but you can't see anything, or it could be potentially behind walls, or like we said, if the vent in the bathroom is going into the attic space and creating mold, but you don't see it, but you could be dealing with the effects of it. Do surface sampling for mold, but that's mold remedy is pretty expensive as well. Then septic inspections. If you have an on-lot septic system that's failed and you buy a house, your house is practically inhabitable. You can't run water, can't use the bathroom, can't shower, can't do anything, and that is probably $20,000 to $40,000 repair, depending on if it's completely failed, if it's just a drain field, septic tank. If there's a cesspool and you're not even aware of that, then you need a whole new system to begin with, not just repairing or fixing one part of the system. And then with wells, water testing is pretty crucial, just to make sure the water you're drinking is safe. I offer bacteria testing, or if you're doing a VA loan or FHA and they require water tests, I carry those kits as well. And then also a well flow test to make sure the pressure of the well is sufficient to feed a house that's needed for a home you need for just daily use. You guys have any questions about anything?
Hi. Do the well systems require a specific amount of interval maintenance or anything like that?
Basically, as long as everything's flowing well, annual testing for bacteria and total chloroform is recommended, but not really. Just as long as it's functioning good and your well cap is intact and there's nothing getting in there. If the head is high enough off the ground where there's no concerns of water runoff going into the well head itself too, it's not much maintenance to do besides just testing and making sure the water stays clean.
Well, septic.
Septic system, it basically, it all depends on the usage. If you have 10 kids or just a couple, pumping is needed. So typically it's every 3 to 5 years, but if someone's harder, if little kids flushing stuff down the toilet and people are harder in the system, you could need to do it every 1.5 years, 2 years, depending on that usage. But that is very crucial to a septic system because it's compromised of the waistline coming from the house leading to the tank, and there's 2 compartments in a tank, and there's a baffle in between. The first baffle holds back all the solids, so say wipes or anything like that. The second baffle should be mostly just a water-like substance, and then that goes to the drain field. If you start getting solids to go into the drain field, which is just pipe with perforations, just holes to let it naturally settle into the soil, then you start having that clogged up, and then you could have a drain field failure, which you're paying somebody to come out with an excavator and then repairing that, which gets costly as well.
I saw when I was looking for a property, I found a 2-unit within the same lot, and they shared the same septic. Is that an issue that you should think about as an investor? Is that something you might want to get more info on? What's your thoughts on having a shared septic when you have 2 units within the same lot?
It's not a concern of the amount of usage towards the septic as long as it's sized properly, and if it's built for that size house, it's fine. But then, for me personally, a buy and hold with the septic system is not on my buy box, because if you have I have tenants and they have kids and they flush Matchbox cars or whatever else down the toilet, you find shoes and all kinds of stuff. That's the city's problem once it gets through to a certain point, where if you have that and you start having a failed system, you could delete 10 years of cash flow from a failed septic by someone beating it up because it's not theirs. So that, for me personally, septics is not in my buy box, but that's everyone's. Obviously, it's dependent on where you're buying, if that's all that's around, or that what's going on there. But the amount of units going to one septic is not necessarily a concern. Just me personally, for tenants, that I wouldn't want to deal with that.
Abby, modular communities, campgrounds are all to one septic system. So it's everything sucked into one box. Maybe there's 2, but something to consider. There are septics that are more than just little boxes for one home.
Yep.
So if there's 2 homes on one septic, it might have been designed for that. You might just have to clean it twice as much. So it's not a deal breaker for us, but you guys know what your risk tolerance is. But just know there are large and different types of septic systems to accommodate.
Yep. The RV camps, like I said, module parks, I'm inside the RV camp with 5 septic systems, and they also had a grease trap as well for like the little cooking that they had on site as well.
So this is where having a professional team that has the knowledge of what you're looking for, as well as understanding your personal risk level, comes in play, figuring out whether that's something or not you want to consider.
Yep.
Repairing a septic system on a 20-unit modular park is a $250,000 repair.
Yep.
That's a lot of money.
And when you're in that situation, make sure it's functional previously. Coming in could be a $250,000 issue. If you waive or overlook that thing, you could be in a world of trouble.
Or like our client last year who bought that exact scenario we just talked about, got this $1 million property for 50 cents on the dollar and just closed the septic system and did not use the lights. Right? You don't have to fix everything. Just let it sit. So keep in mind, there's a lot of alternatives to just what's right in front of you.
Anything else?
Question, earlier you said you would add this to your insurance policy because it's cheap, but fixing it if there's a problem would be really expensive. Are there certain things that we should think of that are good to just in general put on your insurance?
Me personally, on all my properties, I put sewer line coverage and sinkhole insurance as well. Sinkholes aren't covered when they happen in the yard, but if you would have a sinkhole that affects your foundation, you'd be covered in that instance. You still, like I said, if it happened on the property, you'd be on the hook for filling it yourself. But that happens around here occasionally. It's not super common, but it's a thing that could happen, and that could be an expensive thing as well.
a really unique opportunity. I'll send out Mike's information and that of our team members and everybody on the call here, just so you can ask questions, or if you have a local inspection that you need done. Again, home inspections are not required. A lot of people like to do them because it gives an opportunity for you to hire an independent third party to survey the home. However, this home inspection is not required by a third party. Some municipalities require municipal like certificate of occupancy or occupancy inspections to live there, but they're not as detailed as what this inspector is going to do. So just kind of keep that in mind. When you're buying a piece of real estate, electing to do an inspection is one of your contingencies. It's not required, but if you ask to do an inspection as part of your offer process, the seller may or may not consider that an offer they want to accept. So just kind of keep in the back of your mind how you want to offer. Home inspections are really good to learn about the property, but from a seller perspective, home inspections are like opening up Pandora's box to your home that they might or might not want to negotiate on. So I'm going to bring the phone back in. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get a picture of everybody here before they bolt. So just get your questions up. We'll take 3 or 4 from the audience, and anything else you have, just send us an email. We can get it all in. But thanks everybody for joining.